look at the other direction. The law says if you give food for the Jew or invite him in your house, you committed a capital crime. Let's assume that a population as grows in around the area, there's 1,800 people lives. Out of 1,800, there are Nazis. Definitely, because they are running the offices, they are running the school, they are providing the police and whatever, because you had to be a Nazi sympathizer to get these jobs. So assume that some of the people are Nazis. I don't know for sure, but assume it. Then I knock a door and I get food, which means the person who gave me food most likely wasn't Nazi. He was a righteous person, and he's more or less, if a beggar comes to the door and asking for food, you're going to give food. Even if you have very little, you're still going to give a little. But what was the consequences of these people giving us food? Nobody got hurt. That's the consequence. Everybody knew, everybody was looking, everybody observed. In a small village of, let's say, 80 people, 2 strangers arrives in the village. Would anybody notice that? Immediately everybody. Would they know what the 2 strangers wants? They knew, because they knew we are Jews from the labor camp. And what do we want? We want food because everybody knew what kind of a food we're getting, because the kitchen, the workers in the kitchen were local people. They had to do work also just the same as we did. They had to dig trenches just the same. Not only the Jews dig the trenches, they had to work also. So they were fully aware of what's the food we're getting, and they knew we are hungry. How do they reply on this? When we went to work every morning, escorted by SS, we found small packages on the roadside containing food, piece of bread, something edible. They put it there, so we're going to find it. And this was the message I received in the very beginning. While you're walking here, I can give you only so much. And since we were working, let's say 150, 160 people, and they put 6 packages on the ground, what then that will make? Not much, but I get the message. If you come to my house, I will give you something. And that's how I was able to take the risk, because I was fully aware of that I will get some food. We went out, climbing over the fence, nobody saw, we going, and we went to the villages nearby. Plash, Risova, Clapping, Aigen. We took an empty rucksack, 2 of us with us, and we collected the food, mostly apple. Why? Because apple was the cash crop, a lot of orchards, and apple they were able to harvest apple easier because a child can go and pick up an apple. You don't have to be a grown-up man with all physical body to pick an apple. So they had apple. I got apple. Where I was in the barrack, there was another small room which housed 25 or 30 Ukrainian laborers. They were called Zwangsarbeiter, German conscripted Ukrainians, specifically for one reason, to bring it to Austria in the farming communities. Their order was to help the locals to work on the field. But on winter time, they didn't have to work on the field, so they were in the barrack, and also they were assigned to distribute the food. They knew that the soup in a large vessel had soup with substance in it. But they were slowly bringing the big kettle of soup, and they leveled off the portions from the top, where they were leveling off clear liquid. And the vegetable was sinking down to the bottom of the pot. When they came to serve themselves, they had served vegetable with a little soup. I had apple. If I would keep the apple overnight, by getting up in the morning, I wake up in the morning, I will find no apple, because in that room we had about 150 hungry people, very hungry. So as soon as I get home, back to the barrack, I went to the Ukrainian and offered my apple for a soup. 1 apple for a soup. This way I get a supplement of food. The other apple I exchanged for tobacco. Some of the Ukrainians were able to get a hand of them to get tobacco or cigarette. Not everybody. So I figured that tobacco in my pocket is a very safe commodity. It's not going to roll away overnight, and I can keep it. So next day, I didn't have to climb over the fence to go again. I went to the Ukrainian and I offered a tobacco for a soup. And I'd get a little soup again with vegetable, by this time paying with tobacco. So this exchange system lasted for a while. And when I had no commodities left, we went out to the villages again and get some apple again, fresh. So we went to Ples, Risola, Clapping, Aigen, 4 villages. I didn't have to go every day. Now, this is what happened at the Aigen, the last visit. This was already in March. I'm coming to Aigen and I knock on the door, the very first door. Young lady opens the door and I tell her what I'm looking for. She didn't even listen, she knew. She grabbed my arm and pulled inside the house. She grabbed my friend's arm, pulled inside the house, closed the door, and said, "You stay here," and disappeared. Short while later, she comes back with 2 egg sandwiches and 2 glasses of apple juice. She insisted on that we eat the sandwiches at spot and drink, and then just to make sure, she put apples in the rucksack. Then looked around, and the sight was clear, and she let us go. I say that egg sandwich saved my life. As simple as this. How do I know? Mid-March, I'm coming down with flag typhus. I was sick. I couldn't do work. And the same time, in about March 27, the order came down from a German high command that evacuate the Jews from Santana and from throughout the Burgenland and Hungarian and Styerland Hungarian or Slovenian border. They were taken to Mount Hospital by walking. So the sick people they knew were not able to walk. The healthy people were taken to Mauthausen. The sick were taken out from the village and put in a wooden barrack outside the village. I was among them. And we were left over there to die. From March 28, they didn't serve the normal breakfast because there was nobody to serve. They didn't serve the soup for dinner because there was nobody to cook and nobody to serve. So from March 28 till April 5, I get no food, no drink, nothing. If you have any science subject in your schooling yet, you find out the human cannot live longer than maybe 8 or 9 days without any liquid intake. That's scientifically proven. So I was on the last minutes of that period. If I wouldn't have had that nourishing sandwich, I wouldn't lasted that long. On the 5th of April, I saw Russian soldiers walking by leisurely. I told the comrades, whoever was still alive, by the way, we were taken about 50 sick people to the barrack. On April 5th, when I saw the Russian soldiers, I said, we are free to go because the Nazis are not here anymore. And I made a declaration of, I'm going home. Whoever wants to come with me, welcome. 5 of us walked away. 45 died during the 9 days. Or some of them were still dying when we left. We left the barrack about 8 o'clock in the morning. We walked all day long till about 5 o'clock in the evening when we reached a Russian field hospital. And over there we were able to, after the intelligent debriefing, we were able to get food. Because they had kitchen, they had regular food. And we were welcome to sleep in that area. But what was the distance from my barrack to the field hospital? 3 kilometers. That was our physical strength, that we were able to walk 3 kilometers as a daily job. Full day, from 8 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon. We didn't do anything but walking. That describes our physical conditions, what we were on. So I can safely say, without the supplementary food I received, based on visiting villages and getting food directly from them, or getting food which I was able to use a commodity and exchange for the food which was supposed to be served for me.
Just one question from the community. What was the worst experience in the labor camp?
And the question is, what was the worst experience for you in the labor camp?
It's a question from the community.
It's a question from the community.
Okay. I'm not sure how to answer a question, what was the worst experience. I had an experience where I was denied the basic human things, personal hygiene, and then I was denied for food, and they gave me liquid intake just sufficient not to dehydrate. What was worse than this? The pang of the hunger, what we felt, that's nothing. The idea of risking my own life, getting shot, I said that's happier way of going than starving to death from getting death from starvation. Because that's painful. A bullet is not painful. It's done. Okay, and so what was the worst? I don't know.
How helpful were the fellow forest workers among each other?
Okay. You repeat that for the audience, please.
How helpful? How helpful? How helpful were the fellow forest workers among each other?
Okay, I'll give you a very nice little example. Number one, our barrack had 2 layers of bunk bed. I was on the upper layer and I saw everything what's going on in the room. My comrade, my friend, was in the same upper bank, right next to me on my left side. In order to get the breakfast coffee or the dinner soup, we decided that only one of us will go down with 2 mess kits and get the food and bring it, and we will eat our food while we are on our spot. On the right of me, there were a pair of twin brothers. They decided similarly that one of them will go down to get 2 portions of liquid and they will eat them or drink them. And I was looking at from there, and the one who received the 2 portions started walking, but before walking and turning around, as he was turning, somehow the 2 mess kits were clicking to each other, and in such a way that a spoonful of liquid jumped over from one to the other. Naturally, the other was his, and the lesser one his brother's. But they alternate to go down for the food. And what happened when the next brother goes down? Exactly the same. That was behavior induced by the treatment we received. Dr. Viktor Frankl, a Viennese psychiatrist, he was in a concentration camp also, and he survived. And after he survived, he wrote books, psychiatry books on his practice and whatnot to advance psychiatry. Originally, he was a Freudian disciple. He learned directly from Sigmund Freud. In one of the books, he describes, and he coined the expression dehumanizing and rehumanizing. When we were conscripted to work, we were dehumanized. So we were able to work as robots, not as human beings. Whatever they're going to say, we're going to do that, because that was the goal. And not only for slave laborers, it works for every inmate, works for every soldier. When a person is being conscripted to the army, the very first thing is the boot camp training. What is the boot camp training? Strip that person from humanity, the human condition, and make him a robot. He coined that dehumanizing. But he also said, after you were liberated, whether you are an inmate from prison liberated, because a prisoner in the jail is dehumanized also. He says the policeman is dehumanized because he is acting as a robot to make you stop and giving you a ticket because he says you were speeding or moving through the red light or you didn't stop at the stop sign. He cannot take into consideration anything what's possibly happened, but he has to give you a ticket. The soldier is being told, you have to shoot over there. If ever things is moving, you have to shoot. So you cannot discriminate who is moving, an enemy soldier or a little kid, a child. You have to shoot. So you don't discriminate, you shoot no matter what. And that's dehumanizing. We were dehumanized, so not only we were very hungry, but we were not human. And we had to be rehumanized.
Did you find new friends in the camp?
So, did you find some new friends in the camp?
Well, that young man who was my friend, a childhood friend, we went to elementary school together. So by age 19 we were friends. He was with me. Nobody else in that group of forced laborers I knew. And I didn't even try to get acquainted with them because I didn't see any future to be acquainted with somebody. We were thinking of our own survival. How are we going to survive the day and how are we going to survive the tomorrow? And there was no time left for socializing.